Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about the anatomy of winning in KVK. And really what this video is about, if you're definitely newer to KVKs, this will help. But even if you're experienced, maybe this will help reshape how you view KVKs, right? So we're going to zoom out, kind of see KVK from a big picture level, and then we can see how like everything fits into that picture. So like why stats matter in KVK, how commander pairings or armaments, even like leadership, the culture of the kingdom, why that matters as far as contributing to winning in KVK. So first thing, quite simply, you win KVK when the other side gives up, right? You don't win KVK when you take the Zig first, or you don't win KVK when you kick the other kingdom, the enemy out of Kingsland, right? We've even seen like recently, I think it was 2489, they were finding some kingdom that they kicked out of Kingsland, thought they had won, and then the other side actually ended up coming back into Kingsland and then eventually outlasting 2489, kicking them out of Kingsland and winning, right? So you actually win KVK when the other side gives up, right? There's a threshold that when you get below that threshold for morale, when enough people just kind of give up on winning the KVK, that kingdom is no longer able to win KVK. Second one, you're just physically out of troops, right? When you don't have enough troops, you can't fight anymore. When enough people in your kingdoms don't have enough troops, you lose KVK. Third one, I put in an asterisk just because I guess it's theoretically possible, right? Like if both sides are fighting for all 50 days and haven't been psychologically defeated or ran out of troops yet, then I guess the team that owns the Zig, or the side that owns the Zig, wins. But I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of Rise of Kingdoms. I've never heard of it, which is why I have it in an asterisk. All right, so something about morale. I talked about it. It's an invisible threshold. There's no like set, you can't necessarily quantify it, but it's there. You could feel when the morale has dropped below a certain threshold, and you're just not really fighting anymore, right? Now, a lot of things that impact morale, right? One is leadership. So one is a leadership fair. Do they communicate well? Do the members in the kingdom trust the leadership to actually have a winning strategy? Do good diplo to bring in good migrants, and also not just hoard resources or like rewards for themselves or for their friends, right? You can imagine if you have like a corrupt leadership that doesn't do any of that. Maybe if you're winning the KVK, you'll still fight, but as soon as it's not looking so hot, a lot of people are just not going to be willing to follow leadership and fight, right? And then, kind of in that same vein, the mentality or the culture of the kingdom, right? We've all fought kingdoms where on paper their stats look really impressive, and then once you fight them, it's like one, either they don't have a lot of punch, or let's just say they do have some punch, but they play for like 8 hours and then they just start getting tired and give up, or as soon as it's a struggle, they just give up, right? And then on the other side of that coin, maybe a kingdom whose stats aren't super impressive, but like they are just tenacious, right? And that's like one of my favorite. If I was a migration officer, I think that tenacity for someone that just loves KVK, loves fighting, and will just keep going and going, is someone I would look for. All right. I have loss in there, right? When you lose certain territories or flags, and when you just feel like you're not sure if you can win, or it looks like it's more likely you're going to lose even though it's not for sure, then you could cross over that threshold. And then obviously like fatigue and time, right? If you don't get a lot of sleep, you're less likely to log on and grind. And then the time is like, for some people that work a 9 to 5, they don't have a lot of time. So once something has taken up too much time, they just, they can't do it. Or, have a girlfriend or a wife that doesn't approve of this game. I'm sorry, that sucks. Definitely heard of that from a lot of people. It could definitely ruin the morale. And then for the troops, I think troops are essentially a reflection of how much resources and speed ups you have, right? Yes, you have 1 million troops, right? You can have 2 million or 5 million or 1 million, but if you have the resources and speed ups to either heal them or train them, technically you could just keep reusing those troops or train more troops over and over and over. But when you run out of resources and speed ups, you're out of troops. All right, efficiency. Efficiency to me is like a completion percentage for a quarterback in the NFL, right? So in the NFL, I think kind of like the benchmark they use, I think it's actually a little higher, right? But let's just say it's 60%, right? So if you're completing below 60% of your passes, you're just not a good quarterback. If you're above, okay, then now we have something to work with, right? Now, by that logic, if 60% is good, wouldn't 70% be better? 80%, 90% be better? Why not? Hell, why not just complete every single pass we throw, right? Now, the reason why this efficiency number, kind of like that percentage, completion percentage number, only tells some of the story is because when it comes to the NFL, if you're completing 90% of your passes, that means you're not throwing deep, you're not taking any risks, you're just throwing it really safe. And if you do that as a quarterback, you're still not a good quarterback, and you're not playing winning, like you're just not playing winning football, right? So in efficiency and KVK, right? Efficiency is basically how you're trading. People love to share reports, right? Whether it's at Rally Garrison or field reports. One is how many 7 I took. Let's just say I took 10,000, but I dealt out 100,000. That means I traded 10 to 1. What that means, because that number, if somebody is in on the other side is taking 100,000 7, right? And I'm only taking 100,000. So when I'm healing my troops, I only need to use 1/10 of the resources that the enemy has to use, right? So if they have to use a lot more, it's a lot more likely that they're going to cross below that psychological threshold or morale threshold and give up, or they just straight up run out of resources or speed ups and they can't heal anymore and they can't fight anymore. That's why efficiency matters, right? But if you're fighting for just to have efficiency, when you need to take an objective or you need to burn a flag or you need to defend a lion fort or something, then efficiency is actually not the most important thing, because maybe winning that specific fight in the moment, even at the sacrifice of efficiency, is more important. And that's where, like, it's not the end all be all. You have to understand, like, sometimes you need to actually not trade positive. So other things that determine efficiency, right? One is the quality of your marches. So commander pairings, are you putting Nevsky with Joan? Or are you going to put Nevsky with Bybars? Right? Like, that matters. And then within the commanders, right? Obviously, it's best to just max your skill. But one, that takes a while. And two, depending on the level of your spending and how much time you have, you're going to progress at different rates. So sometimes that's why 5511 is good enough, because maybe for a particular commander, if 5511 gets 80% of the value, yes, maybe your OCD will want you to max it out, but if you are not getting sculptures fast enough, then you have to actually be smart about it to see how you can spend the least amount of possible relative to how fast you're gaining sculptures, but still maximize taking advantage of the commander skills for your efficiency, right? Technology, right? That's early game. That's just military technology. And then once you get to Season of Conquest, your crystal tech, right? That affects your efficiency. That's why it's worth spending in it. Equipment, but they give you stats. The better stats you have, the more efficient you are relative to other players that you're going to fight against. Right, and the same thing with armaments, given stats, right? So like, big takeaway from this is one thing is not necessarily better than the others, and there is a huge opportunity, right? Like technology and technology is just technology. I don't think people are over or undervaluing it, but I think people are definitely undervaluing armaments, how important it is contributing to the overall stats or the efficiency of trades. And I'll talk about that a little bit in, I think, the next slide or the slide after, right? Now, the other thing that impacts your efficiency is strategy, right? So earlier I talked about leadership, the leadership's ability to actually come up with a good strategy and execute. But there's other stuff that we could do too, is like, if you jump on voice chat where everybody's actually just boom, right there in real time listening to instructions, they're going to be able to move more efficiently, and that's a strategic advantage. Same thing with having good markers, right? The other one is how you build your forts, or how you're dropping your forts, building your forts, how you're building your flags, right? Like, there is some bad flag builders, right? And when you build really well, maybe the other side has more troops, or more players. But if they build in a way where they can only get like 80 of their players on the field, and you build in a way where you could get 100, then you actually, from a strategic standpoint, put yourself in a position to do a lot better than the other team, right? The next one is volume. So volume is something that I think people value volume when it comes to how many players a kingdom has. Actually, I don't know if it's overvalued or undervalued. Let's just talk about it a little bit, right? Volume is the amplifier of efficiency. So what I mean by that, if I'm playing against the best, highest spending player in Rise of Kingdom that has the best of everything, right? And they have the meta march that right now they're running Scipio Luchet, right? And then he's playing against me, and I am able to take out 5 marches to play against that one. I'm going to wreck him every time, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Yes, you want to have efficient marches, but if you don't have enough numbers, and that means kingdoms, right? How many players you actually have, active players you have, but then also what is the uptime as a kingdom, right? So the uptime is going to be made up of the players, which makes up the uptime of the kingdom. If you have a lot of active, quote unquote, active players, but their uptime isn't that high, right? Having less active players, but having more uptime can actually perform better, right? So that's why, like, if you're a migration officer, again, I think a lot of this video is geared towards that. Finding out about their uptime and really getting, like, nailing that down is important, right? Because that's something that I think it's almost like a hidden gem that you know, when I look at migration forums and stuff, they don't actually seem to ask about that, right? They'll ask about your VIP level, right, which is showing how much you spend. They'll ask about a lot of stuff, but like uptime is something I think you should definitely ask about, right? And then for individual, volume is just also like how many marches you have, right? More marches isn't necessarily always better because the quality is going to drop. So as you get more marches, right? Maybe for 3 marches, I have a high efficiency, but at 5 marches, they're still viable, but my efficiency is going to drop. And when my efficiency drops, I'm going to take worse trades, which means I'm going to have to use more resources at the expense of maybe dealing a little bit more damage to the other people, right? So like, if it's like a very important objective, or like we're in Kinsland and it's, you know, it's we've been grinding for a day, like this is it, right? Use the max number of marches. But if, for example, right now in KVK we're actually on the losing side, like we were weaker camped than the other camp, so we were planning on wearing down the opponent. Taking out a lot of marches might not be the best idea when we're just kind of having just skirmishes here or there, right? The point of the skirmish then should be to wear out the opponent as much as possible while not wearing myself out as much, so that when we actually meet up with our allies and we fight, we weaken our opponent enough now so that later on we can fight a lot better, right? And then I do have like this quote, effective hours played. So effective hours is when you're actually being productive, right? So just sitting on the game, and I'm not telling you not to do it, right? But like just chatting and LKC, Lost Kingdom chat, that's not playing. That's just, you're on, yeah, but you're not actually doing anything, right? Like effective playing, especially when you understand KVK in the context of what I'm talking about, is sitting in a ball when you're supposed to sit in a ball, so you could be ready to surround a flag, or like to actually to do something, right? And not just chasing like stragglers everywhere to just try to get a little bit more KP. Effective hour is understanding the game, and that's definitely something where you know, as an individual, if you're watching this, understand like why leadership has you do certain things, right? Or like it asks you not to do certain things. Like if you're on the front lines in an important zone, when you leave, don't bubble. Because like you're literally taking away a spot from someone else that could be there, that could contribute to fighting, right? And now that person has to say 2 minutes further away, right? Every time they march there and back, it's 4 extra minutes that they have to spend not on the battlefield that they could have been if you didn't bubble and you just teleported out, right? So a lot of it is understanding things like that. All right, next, stats. So, I get it. We all love stats, right? If you want to like look up NFL player or NBA player, right? How many points, how many rebounds, how many assists do they have? If someone has a high number, they're probably pretty good, or they're a star. But we've all know players, especially if you follow sports, that have good stats that aren't actually really contributing to the team. And in the sports, right, those players will repeatedly get cut. They could have a good season, but then they don't seem to get paid what their stats will indicate they deserve. And then they'll get cut from teams, even though they just had a statistically good season. It's because there's more context. Like maybe those coaches or GMs for those teams just determine they're not a good player and they're stat hogs, right? They're literally hogging stats, but not contributing or even hurting the chances of the team winning. And in Rise of Kingdoms, right, the 3 stats I would say people probably fixate on the most is kills, deads, and then I guess a distant third would be heals, right? So kills is basically how many severely wounded that and deaths that you dealt to the other side, right? So the more of that you have, obviously the more you fought, right? But you can also farm kills, where we've all seen the joke where someone's in LKC asking to trade 30 million T1 kills. So you could farm kills, right? You could technically farm T5 kills too, just because like just because someone has high kills doesn't mean they necessarily earned it the right way, right? I'm not saying that don't look at kills, but by talking to people or kind of seeing or weighing a couple other things, you can tell if their kills are legitimate or not. Legitimate as in like they were effective kills that actually contributed to winning KVK or not, right? Now heals is basically how many sub wounds you healed from the hospital, right? So if you have 30 million kills and you healed 15 million, right? And there's T4, T5, all that stuff. Let's just say it's all T5. Then you essentially traded 2 to 1, right? You only had to heal 15 million, but you made the opponent heal 30 million. So the kills to heals ratio shows efficiency. That's why it matters. All right. Deads, this is one where it's overrated. It's not overrated. It's actually super important, but it's so easy to inflate deads, right? So deads is essentially when you're attacking a structure, right, or a city, or is it objective? No, not structure or city. The side on the rallying side and the garrisoning side, or if you're on the field, you're just swarming a city, right? You take deads, right? Those don't come back. Now in KVK, when they die in KVK, half of them comes back at the end of the KVK. So what they're supposed to show is how willing you are to participate in defending a garrisoning or joining a rally to actually send your troops to die, right? It's like this noble thing. It's awesome because when they die, you actually don't get them back. Whereas when they're sub-wounded, you could heal them. But the problem with that is people fixate on that so much that, hey, if you don't hit your dead goals by the end of KVK, I'm just going to go and swarm some random city just to accumulate the deads, right? So it's very easy to inflate that number. Like who here can't find like an enemy city or a flag that's full and just swarm it and just get a bunch of deads? Everyone could do that, right? But like it's if you're actually doing it at the right time for the right reason. And that's something that it's hard to, honestly, it's hard to tell. Like just looking at the numbers, that's something like, once you, again, like, migration officer, when you're interviewing them, you should be able to get a feel for like, are those deads legit? Or are they just people that feel like they have to hit a quota, or that, deads are impressive, so I'm going to get a high number of deads, right? And then account age is the same thing. It's important because one, your stats relative to your account age shows like longevity, right? How consistent are you over time, right? But it could be sometimes someone could have a purchase account, or sometimes someone, maybe it wasn't a spender and then finally kind of really got invested in the game and started spending a lot more. So maybe the first half of their account's age, their stats were really bad, and the second half were really good. I think we could use it as a gauge, right? But I think what's more important with the stats relative to account age, ideally, is actually probably if you could see, hey, what was your stats like the last 2 KVKs, right? That's that's essentially what have you been doing for the last 5 months, 6 months, and that will be a more accurate representation of the stats. So finally, some opportunities for players and kingdoms that I think they're just really like underrated right now, right? So the most overrated is commander skills, commander pairings, and equipment. I think everyone just talks about that at this point. Even if people that do have like disagreements, they're minor, right? People are all about the same relative to just how far they can get. Now, the most underrated is armaments, and the reason why is because I've seen content creators, and those are the ones I get to see the most, when they share their armaments, they're like, oh, this is pretty good. It's not that good, right? And whereas like what's pretty good should probably have about 10% more stats. And I think the only reason I could think of is because I know these people actually spend more than me. So if they spend more than me, and armaments is definitely a spender-friendly system, how is their armament so bad? It just means they must not actually really value it, right? If you think about like 10% of stats, that's the difference between a full crit purple set and probably like a full legendary non-crit set. It's that big of a difference, right? If you asked anyone, hey, you know, look at this full purple crit or this full legendary, like, look how big of a difference that legendary is compared to that full crit purple. People are like, yeah, oh my god, yeah, of course, right? But when you look at, hey, look at this like armament that has like 10% less stats, I don't think they actually get the impact is the same, right? So that's why, like, hey, you know what, if you, especially if you're spending, value armaments. Opportunity when it comes to investing, right? If everyone thinks there's an opportunity in one place, where they're looking at one place, when you're looking somewhere else, that's usually where the biggest opportunity is. And in my opinion, it's armaments. The next three are actually more for players. We're like migration officers to think about. Let me put it that way, right? When you're looking for someone, what is their effective hours played? One, how much time can they actually play a day, right? And then like, can they actually play? Are they flexible with their hours so they can actually adjust their schedule to be on like when they're the most needed? I think that actually is something that is almost like more important than even like what your commanders are, because if someone can play like 12 hours during KVK and someone else can only play 4, right? Like the 12 hours is literally 3 times more like contribution that you're not going to get someone whose commanders are 3 times better than someone else's unless one is so good and one's so bad. So that's just a great area of opportunity. And then obviously this is more like your contribution of morale, like whether a person's contribution of morale, you know, you can kind of get a feel if they're a good fit for the kingdom. Are they positive? Like positive, like not like one of those like toxic positives, like actually just positive people to be around. I think that's the best way to put it, right? It's super important to a kingdom that I wish more people emphasize, because there's a lot of toxic people in a lot of kingdoms that I've seen. The fourth one is like ability to execute a strategy, right? So like, hey, can you actually be on at this time when you're supposed to be on? Can you be on voice? You know, oh, you're shy. Okay, can you actually get over it and get on voice, because that's important. Like they, you know, there's a willingness and an understanding of why strategy's there, and then they do it, right? Like when it comes to like markers, or people following markers, like it literally is on your screen. You have to choose to just not pay attention or ignore it to actually miss the marker and go do something you're not supposed to do, right? And when the people aren't doing that, they could have good stats, they could have good commanders that got those good stats, but do you actually really want them in your kingdom, right? So that's something to definitely screen for. And if you are someone that doesn't follow instructions well, like get like why that's just not cool, and that doesn't work, right? It literally takes away from the morale of the kingdom. And then the final one is something maybe I'm biased in, right? I'm just starting KVK 6 now, so I fall into this category. I think newer players, newer SOC players, so they completed their first season of Conquest, KVK 4, and they're either in KVK 5, 6, or 7. That's where there is a huge opportunity. If you're a well-established kingdom, with a reputation, or like you have a kingdom with like really good content creators that's like luring in like good migrants, fine, you know, you're already going to get good players anyways. But if you're not one of those kingdoms and you're looking to get good players, I think new SOC players are where you're going to find hidden gems. The reason why is because it's hard to get really good stats in KVK 1 through 3, right? In KVK 4, that transition for that first SOC is rough for a lot of players. I made a video about this. So their stats might not be up to what you think 4 KVK should contribute to, but like you could start like looking, hey, you know what, how did you do in KVK 4, right? Like how's a new player does in KVK 4, like an actual native player making it to KVK 4 for the first time, will really tell a lot about like what the trajectory of their account is, right? So like you could dig a little bit and actually probably get really good players that maybe their stats don't reflect how efficient or how much punch they have on the field, and then also don't reflect how like in 2 or 3 KVKs they can actually grow into a very powerful or valuable member of your kingdom. And like if you're a kingdom that's looking to grow and find good players, like finding players when they're in that stage is a great opportunity to, one, build a good community, but also like grow the kingdom while getting players at other big name kingdoms, or maybe like popular kingdoms because of YouTubers. Maybe like they kind of slips through the cracks. So that's a plug for newer SOC players. But I think that's the video. Please leave a like if this was interesting or helped out in any ways. It's actually really cool to just notice the likes come in the comments, and it definitely really helps out the channel. All right. Hope you guys enjoy this. I will see you guys next time.